Hello and welcome to EPG Pathshala. And this is Professor J. University, former Professor of Public Administration, Kapti University, Waranga, Telangana State. Today we will be having a presentation on Dwight Waldo, who is considered one of the eminent thinkers in the subject of public administration. Waldo's major contribution is as a chronicler of public administration theories. Apart from making his own contributions, he has chronicled or he has provided a historical suite of administrative theories. In this presentation, we will see some of the details of his biodata. Second, major publications of Dwight Waldo. Thirdly, his important ideas and administration and management. And finally, we will take a critical look at his contribution, trying to know what is the good and bad of his contributions or limitations of his contributions. Now we move on to the first part of the lecture, which relates to the biodata of Dwight Waldo. Dwight Waldo was born in the year 1913 in David, Nebraska province of the United States of America. He died at the age of 87 in the year 2000. He joined the University of California after World War II, University of California at Berkeley as associate professor. He was actively associated with many prestigious academic institutions. As basically an American political scientist, and he studied, as I was mentioning, he studied at the University of Yale, one of the Ivy League universities. We come to his important contributions. 9 books published by Dwight Waldo deserve our attention here. The first and perhaps the most provocative is the book entitled Administrative State. This book is a revised version of his PhD thesis. And this thesis has made him a pariah, untouchable in the discipline of public administration. This book was so provocative that most of the established scholars of public administration did not like the ideas of Waldo. This is the meaning of pariah or untouchable. This book he published in the year 1948. The next important contribution is the study of public administration published in 1955. The third book is Novelist on Organization and Administration published in 1968. The fourth book is Public Administration in a Time of Turbulence. This was published in 1977. The fifth book was published in the year 1980 with the title The Enterprise of Public Administration. The sixth book is Democracy and Bureaucracy. This he wrote along with Frank Marini in 1999. The seventh book is Perspectives on Administrative Theory, published in 1955. Ideas and Issues in Public Administration, 1953. And lastly, Temporal Dimension of Administration, published in 1970. Let me just mention, temporal means time dimension. So what is the time element or time input in administration? Well, these are the important publications of Dwight Waldo, and with these books, he has made lots of fascinating ideas to the repertory of public administration.
3, 2, 1, goes.
Now we come to some of the important ideas of Dwight Waldo. One of the book he has written is The Administrative State. Perhaps this was the first contribution of Dwight Waldo. And this says that the modern state is administrative state. What it connotes is administration is all over in the modern state. Administration is omnipresent. This is the meaning. And some of the interesting ideas that he says is policy and political considerations cannot be totally excluded from administration. Now, scholars of public administration were trying to, in fact, the very origin of the discipline of public administration owes to politics administration dichotomy of Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson says politics is politics, administration is administration. But Dwight Waldo challenged this proposition and says that in administration there is politics. Politics, in the sense policy and political considerations, cannot be totally peeled from administration. And similarly, challenged the idea of value-free administration. So the development administration thinkers and comparative public administrations were trying to develop what is known as the value-free science, and this was also the attempt of Albert Simon, who talked about decision-making theory. So you have to have a theory of administration which is written of all the values, but Waldo says this is not possible. And he says public administration is to be seen as not as management science, but as social science. What it means is some people are trying to take public administration closer to business management and saying that both business management and public management have something, similar things. But Waldo says it should be seen as social science. It should be seen in relation with several other social science subjects like political science, history, sociology, psychology, anthropology. I think these are better connected with public administration, more logical connect with public administration than business management. And one more way in which he says makes a distinction between, of course, even while disputing the distinction between politics and administration, is himself making a kind of distinction, maybe in a very veiled way, in a very maybe not in a very obtrusive way. He says in politics and administration, the analogy of politics administration, the better analogy will be between democracy and democracy. So democracy is the construct around which the politics moves, and bureaucracy is the construct around which administration moves. He says public servants must. He says Waldo says that there is an inherent tension between democracy and bureaucracy. He says democracy and bureaucracy cannot be totally reconciled. There is something, a natural tendency in democracy to exclude bureaucracy, and there is a tendency in bureaucracy to exclude democracy. But this tension must be resolved, and the administrators are supposed to protect the democratic principles. And democratic principles have to be protected, and therefore the message is that you should not view at administration from the business perspective. The second most important idea of Dwight Waldo is his chronicling of the history of public administration. Chronicling is making a history of public administration. He says public administration as practice has originated in the earliest times. But most of the textbooks on public administration would reckon public administration from 1888, when Woodrow Wilson wrote his very now famous article, The Study of Administration. And maybe people try to stretch the history to 125 years, no more. But Waldo says public administration as a practice originated in earlier times of civilization. When civilization was born, administration was born. And therefore, he says that much of the literature on public administration is ahistorical. Let me just repeat the word ahistorical means it's not historical. Now, to understand anything, you have to have historical roots of that. If you want to understand corruption, you should see what happened in history. What were the modes of corruption? What were the solutions for corruption? I think this will give you some idea as to how to check or overcome corruption in modern times. So history gives you some ideas. So therefore, historicity is very important, but public administration, according to Dwight Waldo, is ahistorical. I think it's projected out as if it is entirely a modern phenomenon, and it got born in 1888. Second important point he makes is that government has a sustaining, nurturing, and creative. The third major idea of Waldo is on classical approach, his observations of classical approach. Waldo distills or summarizes abstracts five characteristic features of classical approach. There are five things in classical approach that distinguish it from other kinds of approaches according to Waldo. The first is politics administration dichotomy, separation, a line of separation between politics and administration. Politics as policy, administration as execution. Politics as the province of the statesman. Administration is the province of a technical official, so on and so forth. This is one of the important features. The second is generic orientation, management orientation. Now, in classical theory, there is a kind of near equation between business management and public administration. Although the classical thinkers have borrowed from public administration, the realm or domain of public administration, they have used that knowledge to make some propositions for business organization, but they were saying that public administration and business and private administration or something like that. The difference is only a matter of degree or of kind. The third important characteristic feature of classical theory is the search for science of administration. The classical theories have tried to develop a science of administration, and this science they founded on the principles of administration of management. The fourth important distinctiveness of classical theory is centralization of executive functions of the functions of the management. And fifthly and lastly, classical theory has exhibited a commitment to democracy. But he says this is right, they have shown a commitment to democracy, but the classical thinkers, classical writers have not defined democracy substantially. Defined democracy substantially, but not procedurally. What it means is they have hinted as to what democratic administration means. That's important, though, but equally or more, perhaps more important, is how to bring that democracy, administrative democracy. So therefore, his complaint, Waldo's complaint, is that he has not defined. They have not defined administration, democratic administration procedure. What procedures, what systems, what processes would ensure a democratic administration. Waldo has drawn an analogy between the three phases of organization theory, and these three phases, let me just list out the classical, neoclassical, modern organization theory. He says each of these three organization theories are comparable to mechanistic, socio-psychological, and systems theories. So he's trying to locate the central focus of each of these theories, namely classical, neoclassical, and modern theories of organization. The next important thing Dwight Waldo did was to focus attention on comparative public administration. Before we just see the views of Waldo, let's see what comparative public administration is. Comparative public administration is studying public administration in cross-cultural and cross-national context. Comparative public administration was a movement in public administration which shifted the focus of administrative studies from steady state systems or the Western societies to developing countries. And this was based on the assumption that the theories of administration perfected, developed, and perfected in the Western countries which followed capitalism and which have achieved where level of advancement, material advancement. These theories may not be relevant for third world countries, and therefore there was a search for developing administrative theory on comparative basis. This is also based on the assumption that simple case studies, just based on one single study, you don't have to go for generalizations. You should not generalize things on the basis of one single study. Suppose you found something in one study, I think you compare, you do studies on several other things, and you come out with the same results. I think you can pretty sure uh, conclude that this is the reality. But this did not happen, and therefore comparative public administration was advocating studies in so many developing countries. And on the basis of these studies, you can develop a theory of public administration. This was the essence of comparative public administration. What Waldo complained about comparative public administration is that comparative public administration has failed to produce a rigorous theory of comparative public administration. What he says is comparative public administration theory does not hold much water. It does not really is not a serious theory. And why this happened? And perhaps he says that this happened due to the fact that the theoretical models developed by the comparative public administration thinkers, perhaps like the ecological model of Wilfred W. Weeks, on-wheels, temporal dimension, etc., etc. They did not, match with the realities. I think these were theoretical constructs in the realm of ideas, not based on practical realities. Yet another important contribution of Dwight Waldo is his contributions to new public administration. New public administration is one of the last in the development of in the theorization of public administration. Waldo was one who marshaled the Minnow Group, one of the Minnow Group conferences, where he brought in many young public administrationists or scholars of public administration to discuss the challenges in public administration of the contemporary times. And as a result of the conference, of course, Minnow Group conferences was not just one; it was followed by a couple of other conferences. It posited a new approach to public administration, which is known as new public administration, which completely overturns the focus of administrative studies. The classical, neoclassical, and all those theories of public administration tried to believe that they develop a universal theory of administration. And there were some central constructs like neutrality of administration, some of these things. The new public administration disputes the value of neutrality. New public administration says that the bureaucrats should have their values. They should be biased. They should not be neutral. Neutrality has the danger of perpetuating a system, an inegalitarian system, or a system full of iniquities. A system, for instance, if you take the Indian example, a system where poor people are there, people of lower caste are there, women's status is low, and all these things being there, if the administrators are neutral, I think they cannot be good agents of social change. So therefore, new public administration argues that there should be commitment on the part of the bureaucracy or the administrators to bring in the valuable social changes. So this is an important contribution, and it says new public administration has, in one sense, rejected the majoritarian approach, majoritarianism and pluralism, and political-moral elitism. What it says is whatever majority says is not right. I think maybe that some of the political decisions are made by the majority party on the floor of the parliament or Congress, or whatever the name that a particular country gives to its lawmaking body. So mere majoritarianism is not good, and majoritarianism will not give all answers. One more idea that Waldo very powerfully projects is that public administration should move from a disciplinary mold to a professional. What he means by this is the public administration should be seen in its entirety. It's not merely a discipline. A discipline is something which helps you to understand the phenomenon. Discipline of public administration helps you to understand what administration is. But the problem of public administration is not only enabling understanding of administrative systems, but improving administrative behavior. So this is where he says that public administration should move from its current position of overly disciplinary orientation, focus on discipline to profession or the practice of public administration. And he says there is a certain kind of second-class status to the discipline of public administration. I think we have several social science disciplines like history, economics, political science, anthropology, sociology, psychology. Now, in the Committee of Social Sciences, in the group of social sciences, public administration is seen as a poor cousin, as a kind of not so very important member of the fraternity of social sciences. This is largely because of the controversy with politics administration dichotomy, still raging controversy. 125 years later, also there are many people who dispute an autonomous status to public administration. They would argue that administration is not cannot be totally peeled from political considerations. In fact, Waldo was also making this assertion. So, for how to heighten its importance, how to give it its due place. Waldo's answer is that you professionalize administration. You focus more on the practices of administration, perfect the practices of administration, try to find out the best methods of administrative action and all that, and give administration a professional orientation instead of teaching everything in public administration. Perhaps there should be an effort to parallelly develop a kind of orientation where actionable knowledge is conveyed in the words of thinkers of administration like Lawrence Licker. Perhaps actionable knowledge has to be given, and this is what he means by further continuing his line of argument, namely making public administration more professional. He gives some very pertinent suggestions to improve the status of public administration in his important contribution, Public Administration in a Time of Turbulence. He says there are 4 or 5 things that needs to be done to improve the value of public administration as a subject of study and subject of action. Firstly, in action realm, the administration should be made less bureaucratic. What it means is that it should be less rules written and less, less of limiting actions of administrators and all that. So it should be little more democratized and it should be less bureaucratic. The bureaucratic power has to be curtailed. Secondly, he says public-private type of organizations are need of the day. Nowadays, we are talking about the PPP, public-private participation. This was the idea was hinting at. There should be more of collaboration between the public and private. So this collaboration will bring in a lot of dynamism into public administration. Private is more result-oriented, contrast to public, and this collaboration with the private would inject a kind of dynamism and professionalism into public administration. Another important suggestion he makes is organization should be non-unitary. What he says is that organization should not end abruptly in the command of one single individual. So he was hinting at non-unitary organizations. I think one good example to borrow from the writings of other administrative thinkers would be matrix organization. One more thing is administration should become more international. More international in the sense that any ideas of administration, good administration, crafted on the basis of a single country experience may not be suitable for emulation all over the world. So there should be an international perspective in public administration. administration. He says there are two unfolding scenarios in the field of public administration. Public administration can take one of these two directions. Public administration in years to come may become totalitarian. This is one scenario, one kind of possibility of administration in the future. The second is administration can become anarchic. Totalitarian is administration grabbing all the powers, administration stifling the freedoms of people, action, choices of the people. So administration has tendency. One tendency of administration is to become totalizing and totalitarian. The other one is becoming anarchic. Somewhere he hints that the anarchic orientation is somewhat preferable to authoritarian orientation. Authoritarian orientation in public administration will make public administration less a tool of society and makes it more a master of society. And public administration should never get a position of master, but a servant or tool of the society. So it was in this context he says even anarchism perhaps is preferable to totalizing tendencies or totalitarian kind of scenario that might unfold if due caution and due care is not taken. Now coming to critical evaluation of Dwight Waldo. Dwight Waldo has indeed made many contributions, and his contributions are to chronicling the discipline of public administration and pointing out the aberrations in the growth of the discipline, and also pointing out the ahistorical nature of administrative theorization. And this perhaps he was feeling that administrative theories have been studied from a long past, but we are confining the administrative science discipline of public administration's growth only in the last quarter century and a quarter century. And this is something he has said. And one of the major rules performed by Dwight Waldo is that he is a very valuable critic and commentator on public administration rather than a theorist of public administration. And he says that public administration necessarily involves politics and he would not allow a very autonomous status to public administration. Of course, he has done something to increase the importance of public administration by indicating what directions it should take and the need for professionalizing public administration and all. He nevertheless makes the point that administration is central. This is what I conveyed in his book, The Administrative State. He says administration has a very central role. It's a very, very important phenomenon in society. And there is an important link between civilization and administration. I think if you want to have the human civilization to be nurtured and preserved, and you are not to lose the fruits of civilization, I think the administration is central, very important. And therefore, he has finally hinted at the tremendous importance of administration. Well, friends, this we conclude this presentation. Let me just remind that Dwight Waldo is a major writer on public administration. He is a great critic and commentator on public administration. He has carefully chronicled, insightfully chronicled the history of public administration, and he also pointed out the current history of public administration is limited because the subject has developed ahistorically and reckoning its beginning from Robinson's nevertheless influential article, but there is a long ancestry to administration. He says civilization and administration are, I think, they have started together. So therefore, we have to trace the history of administrative studies from the start of civilization. So these are some important contributions of Dwight Waldo. Before we conclude the presentation on Wilson as an administrative thinker, let me make a mention that he is acknowledged as the most important contributor to political science in the past 100 years. This summarizes the seminal importance of the contributions he has made. And one more thing that he has particularly contributed to is the growth of new public administration. New public administration is abbreviated as NPA. New public administration is one of the last in the history of public administration. Uh, and this was a big departure from the earlier assumptions of public administration as a something which is free from politics. It is the province of the administrators. It deals with the execution. Administrators are supposed to be neutral. The role of administration is to preserve the society. Some of these givens of public administration were very strongly indicted and questioned by the scholars of new public administration. The scholars of new public administration were mostly young public administrations who were impatient with the rate of change in America, and they were not happy with the conditions of the minorities in America. And, they wanted that public administration should play a more proactive role. It should not be neutral. It should take the side of the underdog, and they should be bringing in change in the society. Therefore, administration should be rather a change agent than preserve the status quo. This was the argument of new public administration, and new public administration is something which is trying to put the wheel back by in terms of disputing the politics administration. In fact, administration was separated from politics because of contemporary American compulsions and challenges. That there was a spoil system, which was bedeviling administration. Because of spoil system, administrators were not efficient people. They were not permanent people. They were not people chosen on the basis of their merit and qualifications. Rather, they were people who were chosen because of their partisan nature. I think now this new public administration's argument is again putting the cart back in the sense that they are again arguing that administrators should have some political role. They should be coaching, and they should be committed to people, and some of these things which were supposed to be abuses of administration. I think these people are buried in a new government, saying that these are some of the welcome attributes of an administrator. With this, I think we conclude the presentation on Woodrow Wilson, who remains by far the most important chronicler of public administration, the most important political scientist of the last century, and also somebody who has precipitated a movement uh, which has taken public administration, shorter public administration out of its conventional mode, and made it enter a new era of proactivism and value ladenness, and maybe taking the sides of the poor and the underdog and the marginalized sections of society. I think as far as the role of administration is concerned, this is a welcome move. Administration as an instrument for people's development is something positive in public administration. Woodrow Wilson was the person who has gathered all these young public administrations. I think the contribution of new public administration, good or bad, accepted or perhaps argued, uh, quite some legitimate share for the contributions of new public administration should be apportioned to Dwight Waldo, who encouraged all the public administration scholars to listen to their views, and to see the pulse of the younger generation, and to locate the shifting moods of the people. So this was a great effort by Dwight Waldo. So therefore, we should also be credited for the new public administration movement in the public administration subject. Thank you once again.